Thank you, everyone. Oh, wow. It's been a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I always feel a bit overwhelmed, quite emotional, and more connected to myself and my ability to work in community as a present being, and connect with all the other beings. So thank you, Reverend Beth Love, for that. And you always bring so much inspiration to your presentation. It's lively, it's connected, and Beth is another one of the million vegan grandmothers. And if you're listening, there's not a million of us yet, but we're moving in that direction. So today I would like to talk about what I've really enjoyed about this whole convergence story. And our next convergence is going to be about stories and the games people play. And I realized that the things that hit us the most, as in the documentaries, are the story that people are telling themselves, whether it's a old story that doesn't work anymore, like I can't, or I will not, or I don't know how, or it's too difficult, or the new stories we're telling ourselves that everything is happening for my benefit if I focus on my time and my presence and my dharma and the way to go about it. So I'll tell a quick story, which I wasn't planning to, but after listening to everyone else's story, I just want to give a little bit of a background on my story. So when I was 10 days old, I was taken off my mother's milk. My mother had an aneurysm and she was rushed to the hospital. I lived in a small dirt road town in Northern Ontario. And there was no way, well, they didn't bring me to the hospital to nurse for my mom. They gave me carnation evaporated milk. I guess I cried 24/7. A shaman told me years ago that the seeds of Crohn's, I ended up getting Crohn's in my 40s, and the seeds of Crohn's started when I was a baby and maybe even in utero. So when we think about that connection, about where we started and the energy around that, I asked him, started in utero, and he said, yes, ask your mother what happened when she conceived you. And I asked her, and she said, when I found out I was pregnant for you, I told your dad I wouldn't be able to handle another baby, that I think I would probably die if I had to have another baby and take care of another baby. And so somehow I got that message in the womb. And very shortly after, my mother was rushed off the hospital. I cried all the time on this carnation evaporated milk. And I had huge dairy issues, which most people do. You know, a lot of people talk about the lactose in dairy, but it's actually also the casein. People don't talk so much about the addictive component of dairy and casein. It's such a large protein molecule, we just can't digest it. And it makes babies very, very sick. It creates a lot of problems. There's a lot of link between type 1 childhood juvenile diabetes and all kinds of issues. So for me, what it did is it planted the seeds for when I was at an all-time high in stress. I ended up getting Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and fistulating disease in my early 40s. And I ended up starting to study health and nutrition. I was already eating what I thought was a really good diet, lots of raw food. I always gravitated towards raw food. And in a very short order, I was sick. I was dying of an inflammatory bowel disease. Now, if you look at inflammatory bowel disease, it's increasing like there's no tomorrow. And everyone says they have that magical moment when something snaps in their brain, when they know that they have to take responsibility for their own health. And it was when my GI doctor said there's no scientific evidence that what we eat creates Crohn's. And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense to me because everything goes through my digestive tract. So I got really, really curious. I ended up at a couple wellness centers, one of them Hippocrates Health Institute. And I went there after being a long distance bush runner, and I couldn't hardly walk. I was so weak and sick. And 3 weeks later, after drinking wheatgrass and shooting wheatgrass up my butt and doing some really great therapy and cold and hot therapy and infrared saunas and lots of crying and lots of biking and lots of laughing and strictly raw food, along with many other people that were there. Some people were wheeled in with arthritis and walked away 3 weeks later. I realized, oh my gosh, I found the answer to everything, to every disease. And what happened for me is I got really deeply in touch with the sadness that sits in my colon. In traditional Chinese medicine, every organ stores a certain emotion. That's why when people are intoxicated and they have a lot of repressed anger and they drink alcohol, the anger comes out. Sadness sits in the colon. I had to deal with a lot of sadness from my childhood, and it came up and it came out. And so I wrote this poem for this convergence, and then I'll get on to my PowerPoint in regards to healing. And I think if we're going to heal, we first have to feel. We have to feel it all. If we're going to heal the planet, we first have to feel that we've been lied to. And we have to feel in that first level of grief, we have to feel the shock. We have to feel it. Like, what? As Sailesh said, what? I've been lied to this whole time. What? And that's what we need to do. So I'm just going to read you this poem, and I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about my heal protocol. So in the healing of this journey, I first wrote a book called Earth Gut, the story of peace, love, and microbes. And I make the connection between the earth that we partake in is what shows up in our gut, because our gut is the earth. And the second book I wrote was Sacred Sovereignty, the Infinity Eight Path to Heal. So I'm going to share 8 infinite ways that we can heal and how that connects to the planet. It's really, really important for us to know that our health is the planet's health. And I think everyone knows that after living like a vegan and seeing what goes on. So this poem is called To Heal or Not to Heal. To heal or not to heal, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer, to continue with habit, to stab it, to nab it, even if we do not need it or heed it, or even if we desire to fleet it or bleed it. No more. Let's only seed it with love. To heal or not to heal, that is the question. A wise man once says, Sailesh to be exact, keep asking why. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? But why? Just another truth to walk on by and turn a blind eye. Another story is being told of the bold and the souled and the gold deep within our hearts. To feel or not to feel, is that the new question? The story of a hydrated planet within you and me. A story of all beings happy and free. Of homeostasis and energy of electron rebirth. Of peace on earth. Of alkaline waters of planet us, and anti-inflammatory deposits of satina trees, and swimming seas left to be. Of love's many dances with light, and a world without hunger and fright. Of our healed earth pulsating in our guts, and no more cuts across the surgeon patient's flesh-hardened heart, or the throat of a voiceless being as it departs. To heal or not to heal, that is no longer the question. We know why, we know how, we know where, we know when, we know now we must do. For love is a verb, heal is a verb, and peace is the sound. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And in my presentation, I just really want you to bring one thought to mind, is that we have such deep innate power to heal. We know how to heal. And the earth does too, if we just leave her alone. We're both super innate, the earth us, our earth gut. So I'm going to share my presentation, Sailesh, if you could give me permission.
BJ, can you make Tammy a co-host?
BJ just went on break. I'll have to call her. Uh-oh.
No, hold on. I can grab host.
Mm-hmm.
No, I cannot. That's interesting.
Mm. I'm calling her.
Okay, please.
There's something about this PowerPoint here.
Okay, hold on. I got it.
Awesome.
You able to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. There.
Yeah.
So heal me, healthy planet. So the HEAL acronym is based on 8 practices known as the Infinity 8. And the reason why I felt this was so important is I was working with a lot of individuals who had no basic biochemistry of how their body worked. And it was really important for me to write something down. The practices are laid out before you in pairs, and the climate healers, us climate healers also have the HEAL acronym used throughout our work, and it stands for Human, Earth, and Animal Liberation. So the Infinity 8 is hydration, homeostasis, energy and electrons, anti-inflammatory, alkalinity, and love and light. So about 2/3 of our body is water. Most of us know that our body is mostly water. And as we age, we tend to lose water. At a molecular level, though, we're 99% water. This is a lot of the work coming from Jerry Pollack from the 4th Phase of Water, which is really interesting work if you haven't read it. He's discovered easy water, which is structured water. So water is our communication system through our body. Water actually instructs all our cells. We know water stores memory. And what we do and when we do it. It does this by electrical signaling. So we're actually body electrics. A lot of us have heard that. Everyone knows water conducts electricity, and that is happening inside us as well. Water carries information. Water organizes information. Water sequence information. And now that's why hydration is as urgent as it's ever been. This is a quote from Gina Bria from the Hydration Foundation. I interviewed her when I was writing Sacred Sovereignty, and she's just a lovely soul. She works a lot with Dr. Jerry Pollack. Dehydration and leaky gut. As our natural barriers begin to leak, our mitochondria become very vulnerable to accelerated damage from toxins, air, water systems. One of the biggest things that Zach Bush talked about when I studied with him for a while was that one serving of glyphosate creates leaky gut in 12 to 15 minutes. And when they test babies, there's tons of glyphosate in. I'm having a hard time here. There we go. Okay, I'll come down here. Thanks, sweetie. So my last slide that I was talking about is I'm really curious that what if our dehydration is a reflection of Earth? So the reason why I say this is I'm a body worker. I do somatic body work, and I have been for 25 years. And one of the questions I ask almost everyone, I can tell by a lot of things, you know, their skin, their fatigue. I said, do you think you drink enough water? And they say, no. Almost everybody says no. And I'm really curious about this. I wonder whether I've often wondered, like kind of on a spiritual, metaphysical level, if one of the reasons we don't is as we dehydrate the earth, I wonder if there's certain way that we're depriving ourselves of the earth as we're depriving our bodies from the water that we deserve, because in some ways we are the earth. It's just something I've been pondering for a while. 71% of Earth's surface is covered by water, but only 0.3 of that water is suitable for human, and we and the earth are drying out. The water cycles of the earth have been severely disrupted by deforestation, pollution, farming. Particles in the air pollution affect the amounts of solar radiation penetrating the atmosphere, and by extension, evaporation levels. Industrial farming depletes aquifers, and intensive cultivation of the soil reduces soil ability to hold water. Sorry, I just think there's somebody not muted right now. Thank you. So by rehydrating our earth, we also save ourselves. There was a really powerful documentary that we shared a couple convergences ago called Milk, done by a Maori man, Chris, and he showed that the dairy farming that was happening in New Zealand isn't a huge country. all of their aquifers, their rivers, all their bodies of water were completely polluted from the dairy industry there. And they wanted to start making more plant-based milk, but they didn't even have enough clean aquifer water to be able to even make plant-based milk. So rehydrating our earth is also saving ourselves. And by by getting rid of animal agriculture and purifying our earths and allowing them to naturally, innately regenerate, we'll be able to have access to that clean water again. So how deep are we willing to go to find water? So these are these beautiful water reservoirs that are becoming more and more depleted. I really love the idea of blessing water, but also allowing the water to bless us. Structured water. So if people haven't heard of Dr. Jerry Pollack, structured water is in fruit and vegetables. The water in fruit and vegetables, if you were to freeze it, it would look like a beautiful crystal snowflake kind of molecule. And when you look at water that is unstructured, it looks like a blob. So structured water knows exactly what to do in our system. It's actually structured water that knows how to penetrate across our cell membranes. So Infinity 8 hydration builders, stop eating all animal products, of course, to regenerate and to develop again our innate wisdom, to watch our aquifers dry up is to watch ourselves dry up. And when I have clients, I often say, do you drink enough water? And they say, I don't have time, I'm busy all day. And I think about the people that travel for 10 miles, so many miles, to collect water from a watering hole. And one place my daughter volunteered one year in Africa, where they put up a fence so the hippos would stay out so people could use the water. Most of us on these calls have access to clean water still. Many people don't. So right now, what we're doing our work, and we need to stay super hydrated so that we can be here to do what we're here to do, to spread the message, to build communities. Let's stay really hydrated. It's super important. So I just have a few suggestions here. One of the things I teach people, and Rebecca's on here, I taught her this over a few weeks, one of my climate healer friends and vegan grandmothers, is if we don't have time to make a nice green juice in the morning, that's all structured water, throw some vegetables in a blender, blend it up, strain it, and drink that. I call it like an infused water. But I asked Jerry Pollack one time, I said, do you think if the water isn't completely structured, if we blend up some vegetables in it that are structured, do you think it'll offer the memory of structured vegetables to that water? And they say, he says, yeah, I think that might be true. Iodine's can everyone see that? Good. Iodine's a really important part of our life. A lot of people don't understand what iodine does, but it's really important to be able to kill pathogenic bacteria. And fulvic acid actually restores the gut lining as L-glutamine does. And when we don't have an intact gut lining, it's really, really hard to stay hydrated. So I'm going to go on to the second part of this in homeostasis. So homeostasis combines the Greek word same or steady, and it refers to any process that living things use to actively maintain stable conditions necessary for survival. So the human body maintains a steady temperature, stable concentrations of such molecules as water, salt, sugar, protein, fat, calcium, blood oxygen, and a steady pH that is measured. So our blood has to remain at a certain pH in order to keep us alive. One of the things that humans do in their diet is they continually put in stuff that is way too acid, and the body has to draw alkaline minerals out of the body. And that is the main reason for osteoporosis, not having enough milk. The link between homeostasis and hydration is that homeostasis can only be maintained in a hydrated state. During our sleep process, for instance, the body becomes acid, in part because it becomes dehydrated. Dehydration causes not just acidity, but toxicity, accelerated aging, damages DNA. In the human body, for instance, there's about 37 trillion cells, and in each cell, around 1 billion biochemical reactions per second. So our body is always creating biochemical reactions to maintain homeostasis. That means around 37 billion trillion biochemical reactions are taking place in our body every single second. Amazing, really. Like we're this amazing machine. So what if our own loss of homeostasis is a reflection of our Earth's? Not only the Earth's temperature, but the Earth's carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles have been thrown out of balance. The Earth's carbon cycles have been thrown out of balance, not just by the burning of fossil fuel, but even more so by animal agriculture. Animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change, responsible for at least 87% of greenhouse gas emissions annually. If you haven't read this paper, it's on Climate Healers. The Earth's nitrogen cycle has largely been thrown out of balance by the manufacturing of nitrogen fertilizers for agriculture. A lot of the genetically modified food has been genetically modified so it can be sprayed with Roundup, because Roundup would otherwise kill everything. The main ingredient in Roundup is one of the main ingredients. It has over 200 toxins of chemical pollutants that are in Roundup. But one of the main one that most people hear about is glyphosate. Glyphosate, when it hits the colon lining, creates leaky gut in 10 to 12 minutes. It's just unbelievable. But insofar as livestock consume over 80% of the weight of the food that's grown, animal agriculture is also a major cause of the Earth's loss of homeostasis in this area as well. And the Earth's phosphorus cycle has also been thrown out of balance by the manufacturing of fertilizers for animal agriculture. Another source of the phosphorus cycle imbalance, deforestation. In the Amazon, 80% of the deforestation is due to, cattle ranching, which we all know. E is for energy and electrons. So many of the elements in our body, such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, have an ionic charge that our cells can use to do the work. Cells control a flow of specific charges, elements across the membrane with proteins that sit on the cell surface to create an opening. These proteins are called ion channels. I'm going to move through here a little bit quicker because I have quite a few slides and we can. So here's some food containing some of our really important minerals that help support life. And biophotonic energy, oh my. So when they take a Kirian photograph of food that's raw versus cooked, it has a much denser biophotonic field. It looks much more alive. Biophotons are the light bundles that have long been recognized by quantum physicists as the carriers of electromagnetic force. However, because physicists are not biologists, photons have primarily been studied within non-biological systems, more recently the field of biophysics. But we do know that photons are emitted by all living things, including humans. And photons and intercellular communication. The one thing I really love to talk about when it comes to biophotons is living food. Dead, heavy processed food, deficient in biophotonic energy, creates in our body something like static that people used to have to contend with, like radio frequencies that are out of sync. Live raw food, by contrast, is biophotonically rich and therefore boosts cellular signaling. This is a painting I did many years ago. And I think about joining Climate Healers and our energy rebirth from the cocoon. So as Sailesh always says, and my beautiful climate healing family, is that we're just coming out of our cocoon stage and we're butterflies now, and we can fly and we can spread the message and we can travel long distances. What if our energy is connected to Earth's? So one of the things that I do as soon as I can get my bare feet on the ground is I do not put shoes on when I'm outside. It's so incredibly important. The Earth carries an enormous negative charge. It's always electron rich and conserves a powerful, abundant supply of antioxidant. I I talked a lot with Clint Oberg, the founder of Earthing, and about this. And he said that my area in Canada is called the inflammation zone because people don't have their feet on the earth. One of the things we can do in the winter, if you're in Canada, is put your hands on a tree and bare hands on a tree. If you can't put your bare hands on the earth or your bare feet on the earth, put your bare hands on a tree and get that electron rich energy, that connection back to the earth. They say it's one of the most anti-inflammatory things we can do for ourselves. So how are we going to control and restore the energy balance of Earth? Well, we know how. Restore ecosystems, eliminate the heavy energy consumption of animal agriculture. And I'm going to move on to A in my protocol, the HEAL protocol, and A is for alkaline. Dr. Otto Warburg was awarded the Nobel Prize of Physiology, Medicine in 1931. He suggested that cancer cells live in a hypoxic, very low oxygen and acidic condition. If we eat highly acidic diet with animal products, sugar, and gluten, the body will start looking and searching and maintaining homeostasis by drawing alkaline minerals from the bones over time. You know, one of the things I found out from my daughter who works in oncology as a nurse is that when they give a patient too much chemotherapy and they completely acidify their blood, they give them a large dose of sodium bicarbonate. This is one of the things I teach people as a really inexpensive way to start to bring up your alkalinity. I read a book many years ago when I was struggling with Crohn's called Sodium Bicarbonate. And just half a teaspoons a day of sodium bicarbonate in your water will start bringing up your pH balance. It tastes terrible, but it works. Breathing deeply to alkaline the body, of course, staying really hydrated because you want your body to be a river, not a stagnant pond. Eat alkaline food for 30 days and feel the difference. So what is alkaline food? All of the green food is alkaline food. You know, I shattered my leg. The surgeon was trying to save it going into surgery. I shattered everything in my lower right leg. He said, I asked him what he was going to do in surgery just before he wheeled me in. And he said, and they waited for a surgeon that had worked in Afghanistan, putting back together soldiers, because most of the doctors didn't know what they were going to do with my leg. And he said, I'm going to try to save your leg. He said, but you're never going to really walk again properly. You'll probably always have to use a cane. I'm like, yeah, I'd already been to Hippocrates. I said, we'll see. And I ate green. I had 2 liters of fresh green juice every day. I had 2 smoothies and I ate a great big green salad. I meditated, I prayed, I did art. I have no residue. Green food has the same molecular structure as blood, except it has magnesium instead of iron. Green food builds blood, builds bone, builds life. Green is life. So what if our acidity is a reflection of the Earth's? Even though the ocean is immense, enough carbon dioxide can have a major impact. In the past 200 years alone, ocean waters have become 30% more acidic, faster than any known change in ocean chemistry in the last 50 million years. Insanity. In order for a coral reef to grow, it must produce limestone at a rate that is faster than the reef is being eroded. Ocean acidification slows the rate at which the coral reefs generate calcium carbonate, thus slowing the growth of coral skeletons. We've seen a huge bleaching this year. So Sailesh, when I wrote Sacred Sovereignty, he wrote how the earth, when I wrote my HEAL protocol, he wrote how the earth represents all of these same things, acidification being one of them, and that reduce acidification and restore the pH balance of the oceans make a huge difference. I mean, 2 out of 3 of our breaths come from the ocean. A is for anti-inflammatory. Alkaline micro-fermented foods. So I love teaching easy fermented foods because fermented foods lights up the mitochondria because it lights up our gut. It's really amazing to eat sauerkrauts and foods that help naturally restore the chemical balance. So one time I went out and I ate out and I was very, very sick. I knew I got really bad food poisoning and I had some homemade kimchi I made and sauerkraut. I ate a half a liter of each when I went home. And within 2 hours, I was feeling better. So what they did is it just all those good probiotics started knocking out all the pathogenic ones. Probiotic fiber veggies. So we all know the gut heals through fiber. Fiber feeds the good microbes. Breathing deep creates an anti-inflammatory system and also a very alkaline system. So inflammation is an important part of healing process, but not the chronic inflammation that goes on from malabsorption of nutrients, autoimmune disease if they're left, and all of the allergy-inducing responses that happen with people all the time. So if our food doesn't give us lots of energy, it's not the right food for us. If we feel like having a nap after we eat, we're not eating the right food. So here's some inflammatory foods to avoid. Of course, the SOS, saturated fats, refined carbohydrates. I want to say something about saturated fats. Is trans fats, they don't know how to break down in the body. The body doesn't know how to break them down. And every disease is a disease of inflammation that's created by too much toxicity that the body can't get rid of. So we're either using our energy, we're putting in food for energy, or our body has to work really, really hard. So when people call it negative calories, it's not actually negative calories. It's actually, when people call it not negative calories. So when people call it empty calories, I say it's negative calories because the body has to work really, really hard to get rid of them. And the one thing that the work of Blaylock, very, very incredible doctor, he wrote a lot about excitotoxins. So there's a lot of artificial ingredients in a lot of the processed foods, and they're excitotoxins. So what they do is they excite the brain cells, and then they die. They literally excite the brain cells and they die. So sometimes the artificial ingredients, they can literally say on them, natural additives or natural flavoring, and it can be an excitotoxin. So we have to really be careful about any kind of processed food that we're eating. So anti-inflammatory foods to embrace. I love talking about the omega-3 connection. I see a lot of people that are incredibly omega-3 deficient. My favorite food for omega-3 are hemp hearts. They grow in abundance in Canada. Hemp is an amazing, amazing, amazing product. I love flax. Make sure you don't buy ground flax. It goes rancid really quick. Grind your own flax, keep it in the fridge for about 10 days. Those are two of my fave. If you add a couple tablespoons or even 1 tablespoon if you're not deficient in omega-3 and a tablespoon of flax to your diet every day, you should be okay with your omega-3s. But then you have other things that you're going to be enjoying, of course, that are also good in omega-3s and good for the brain. But my favorite and my all-time favorite, wherever there's flax growing in any countries, people thrive. People seem to be healthier in countries where they grow a lot of flax. So what if the heat of our inflammation is a reflection of the Earth's? Reducing the Earth's inflammation by lowering the temperature of the Earth to an oxygen-rich safe level and restoring symbiotic anti-inflammatory ecosystems. The last piece here is L is for love and light. When I first wrote this, I really wondered if people would see love and light as pretty woo-woo. And I realized that light, people talking about what light actually is everywhere now. It's not some concept. So I did this really powerful workshop a couple days ago on red light therapy. And he said that it is one of the most amazing anti-inflammatory things we can do. And of course, we know being out in the sun, but when we don't get enough of that, what happens when we're exposed to light therapy? What happens when we are in the sun? What happens when we maybe need to supplement with a red light therapy? I was doing a podcast recently with Gerard Bishop, and he said, we're just light. And I just love that. I just hear it mainstream now. And we're just light. We're light and electrical energy. And we light up and we connect when our hearts are open. So, I see Dr. Akil here, a dear friend of mine, and he had open heart surgery and his heart opened up after that. He wrote an amazing book, and we know now of the broken heart syndrome. We see so many examples of a partner that dies and another partner, their lifelong partner dies right after them. When my son died, my heart started beating irregularly. I had zero chance of heart disease, I was told at a wellness center. And my heart started when I was tested, my heart had this extra long beat. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. And beside the other one, it was this regular heartbeat. And I went to a cardiologist and he said, I see this after somebody loses a loved one. Their heart starts beating irregularly. He said it'll probably heal. And it did. It was almost like I had an extra beat in there for my son. I was pulsating for him for a while. Love keeps us in alignment. It truly does. Without connection, it's too hard to be here. And I see the communities that are coming together. I also know that having a healthy gut allows us to express and feel love. Most of the serotonin and dopamine are made in the gut. A lot of people don't understand that. And in order to feel our purpose, we have to have a thriving microbiome. So Infinity 8 Love Builders is to cultivate the art of self-love for the heart, not the mind, is where the health building choices are made. So if people here if my tribe here doesn't know very much about the Heart Math Institute, please study a little bit about some of the work they're doing. It's absolutely unbelievable. Our cardio energetic connection with each other. It's why sometimes we can think of someone and they call us right away. We're all connected. We're all connected through our heart. And when we return to our heart, everything's so much easier. Everything's so much easier. I love the word radical forgiveness. I read a book many years ago called Radical Forgiveness. And it's like, radical forgiveness means there's nothing to forgive because they're just your spiritual teacher. So if people are really challenging you or they've given you an opportunity to learn to be a really resilient human being in this lifetime, they've kind of given you a gift. So then there's nothing to forgive. And when we listen deep within what the messages are providing for us, why things aren't maybe going our way or why we're really struggling, there's usually an upgraded version of what's going to happen for us. And Dr. Gabriel Cousens, Rabbi Cousens, one of my longtime teachers, says, start every thought with kindness. And he said, if you go into every conversation with peace, which, we don't always do, even if we want to, if we choose to go in with peace, then kind words will follow. Sailesh said to me recently, he's studying the Bhagavad Gita again and teaching it. And he said, in the Bhagavad Gita, we're to treat everyone like they're God. That's our challenge, but that's also our commitment. So what if our love can restore the earth? So implementing a love-based vegan donut economy system, as opposed to a fear-based, infinite growth system that is governing our planet today, and the war on humans and other animals and the rest of nature. And I would add, as I work a lot with people, we need to end the war on ourselves. We need to stop shitting all over ourselves. We need to stop the constant inner dialogue that tells us we didn't quite do enough or we're not enough. Get daily green light from green drinks and food. Forest bathing. Spend lots of time in the forest wherever you are, as much as you can. What if our light is a reflection of the earth's? awakening to our true purpose as climate regulators and as light beings, as the light being species of the planet that we are. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to just end with one poem, and then I would like to leave some time for questions. So for me, a lot of my strengths comes from nature. I grew up as a little girl with not much parenting. My daughters call my childhood survival of the fittest because there wasn't any supervision. But the gift of no supervision is my babysitter was nature. I learned to forage. Somehow I learned to forage as a child. I figured out what berries I could eat, what flowers I could eat. It's like a little coyote in the fields. And I started forming this love affair with divine. And I wrote this poem for my love of my life, and revised it as a second love. And my love for nature that brought me through. And it's called All Things Dance. The aquifers trickle upward to the brooks that meet the rivers, and the rivers towards the ocean blue. Seaweed swims with mammal dances as winds of molecule join starlit ancient light. While Earth Mother's sweet love engulfs me, I remember nothing in the world is single. All things across my heart are connected. And in another chance meeting, God's nature merged with me. See the mountains kiss high cumulus fluff, and the waves roll back to the ones left behind. No sister flower would be forgotten in fields of rolling hills left to be. The weaving shores dance across the erosion, drift back to join the blue, as sunlight clasps her ancient trees, and the moonbeam kiss the sea. What would this sweetness be if thou sweet earth water had not kissed me? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.